Niklas Hemlin, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
We are back together on Zoom only, which will change very soon because you're already at the spot where the USPA Nationals are going to take place soon.
Yeah, Airspeed just arrived in Ottawa, Illinois, outside of Chicago yesterday. We're staying in this Airbnb, kind of like in the downtown area. Very, very nice. There's blue skies outside, and we're going to go to the drop zone later on today to do like 5 or 6 jumps. So yeah, man, it's great being out of Arizona a little bit. We arrived in Ottawa here a little bit early. We have about 10 days, I think, before Nationals begins, or 8 days, I should say. It's just nice getting out of the Arizona heat a little bit.
Yeah, 5 to 6 jumps sounds really light. So you're not really making it a big intensive training camp any longer. This is get accustomed and get used to the place. And
yeah, singles and 20s. That's all we need to do, you know, leading up to the Nationals. I mean, if it's still going to end up like 25, 30 jumps and then the meet. So that's quite a bit.
And that's what you can expect at the Nationals anyway. Now, teams sometimes keep forgetting that there's a big difference between training and competition, because in training, you're trying to make as many jumps as possible on a day, back to back and all kind of stuff. And then you go to a competition, all of a sudden you have 2-hour breaks between the jumps. Big difference.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so we have that is all coming up, and we get lots of coverage at the USPA Nationals. I'm hoping so, at least. But there are other things to talk about, and important things like judging and other things. You're just coming back from traveling. You were in Europe.
Yeah, I went to the British Parachute Association Nationals in Hibbleston, and I was coaching Chimera, and you know, and they ended up winning. And yeah, it was very nice to be there and be part of you know, their championships. You know, I went to Hibbleston 15 years ago with John McIver, Steve Hamilton, Thomas Hughes, and myself, and we would do like a guest 4-way team, but the whole thing rained out. And on this trip, it was like blue skies for all of 5 days. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Now we had like 29 teams, and they finished the meet in days, like the US Nationals. Did 7 on the first day and 3 on the second day. It was great.
Yeah, that's why I bring it to Hibbles. So because they have been doing this for years, you know, getting this, no matter how many teams are registered, you know, they're getting the job done on a weekend usually. So that's pretty cool. Now USPA is doing the same thing, you know, like 10 rounds in 2 or 3 days. So that's very similar. Europe had other events at the same time. Chimera didn't really have competition there. You know, they ended up 40 points ahead of the team in second place. That's unusual for Chimera.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chimera performed very, very well. And they skydived right coming out of the gates on round 1. They were very strong, and they had a great first day, you know, and then they've been so far ahead, you know, Team Apex. One of their previous team members, Chris Judd, is now on a different team, Apex, that took second place. NFTO didn't show up for whatever reason. And you know, the first day was fantastic for Chimera, and the second day, you know, big lead kind of hangover a little bit. The first 2 jumps weren't gelling, but then jump 10 was fantastic. So yeah, and I also know that you had the Italian Nationals going on, then the French Nationals going on all at the same time. So it was a pretty heavy weekend. Yeah,
so and we had similar situations there in Italy. Amnesia and Extremely, the good old duel between the 2 most famous Italian teams.
Yeah.
But Amnesia now far ahead. Nice. No, you know, like in England, not really competition there. Did you
Yeah.
watch the jumps already, or did you see anything from Italy?
I watched a little bit of the Amnesia stuff. I haven't really gone into the French stuff. I noticed that Sophia was back on the French forward team lineup. So that was a change in the female team. Don't know why. But yeah, I mean, I saw some of the social media posts that NFTO was posting from, I think they were doing the French draw. So, you know, all those teams, I think Camira, NFTO, the French team, are all around a 20 average, you know, and it's going to be interesting to see the world meet, you know, when everyone is all together doing the same draw.
Yeah, they all had they had their similar handicaps, if you can say so. Now, like Amnesia still had to jump from the Pilates Porter from the right-hand door, and you know, exits on the Pilates Porter they are not great fun, right?
Yeah.
So they ended up with an 18 plus average, but from a left-hand door, which they're used to in training, you know, they will, as you say, they will probably be around 20 average for a competition with Chimera, who had also their own obstacles to deal with. We talk about this in a minute, but you didn't mention at all. I mean, to just for some additional information, Pamela Visajou, who Sophia stepped in for, she's only injured. She has an arm injury, but she's planning to come back and continue with training and competition through the world meet. So Sophia really just stepped in for her.
Okay.
And, so they were not trained with this lineup, and hopefully they will also. It's you know, sad news. Get an injury shortly before the nationals and the world meet. What can you do? Anyway,
yeah.
You never talk about the French 4-way open class team. What do you think about their first performance at an outdoor competition?
I think it looked pretty good. I mean, I'm going to study their video more. I mean, as far as, you know, it all depends on what people bring on D-Day at the meet, you know. And I feel like they're looking great. And for the future, they're definitely a team that I want to keep watching, you know. And I mean, they did, yeah. So, I mean, they did like a 22-something average.
Hi, Joey.
So yeah, ignore him.
Yeah, they did 22 plus or something, and it is probably the youngest. I don't know. It's probably the youngest 4-way open class team in history. You know, on a national team at least. They are, you know, Tom Martoni, who was 4-way junior not too long ago, a year ago or so. He's on that lineup now, and so that average, they probably have an average age of like 20, 22 or something like this. So I was wondering if you take them serious now after.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like over and over again, Airspeed picking Chris and Joey, Hayabusa back in the day picking Dennis, and then Bob, and then Michele, and now Neil, and now the French team. I feel like recycling these old guys just because you want an immediate high average, I think that's just old, you know. No pun intended.
Talking about Apex.
No, but you're cycling in the young youth and with the tunnels. I mean, it's amazing. They pick it up right away. You know, 20 average back in the day before tunnels. You used to have solid exits and hill work because that's where you had to expose yourself to so many jumps to get a 20 average. Now you get a 20 average with an H exit, you know, and so hill work because you're so proficient on the flat, which is a great benefit of the tunnel, you know. But still, you can still see a lot of teams struggling. The top teams in the female class and other classes, any team really above a 20 average are not as proficient as back in the day doing on the exits and the hill work. But anyways, back to picking younger people. I mean, it's that's what you have to do, you know. And when you do, they do well, they stay together, they're a force to be reckoned with in the future, you know. Absolutely.
Back to Chimera. You and the team had some kind of a little, let's call it rude awakening at least on the first day of the competition. I remember when you contacted me from England during the competition. Now you mentioned that there were some quite unexpected judging calls. Unexpected as of you saw things on the score sheets that we have not really seen much so far.
Yeah.
What was it exactly? Give us a little, explanation of that, and then.
I mean, so first of all, it is important not to come across as critical of the judging or the judges. You know, I know that we couldn't even perform our sport if it wasn't for the judges, and it's kind of hard to find judges, or it's hard to have experienced forward people to do judging. You know, so I don't want to come across as critical towards the people doing the job or the host. You know, because I mean, I'm just a guest at their nationals. So that being said, I think it is important to have a conversation to move the topic forward, because it's very, for us, a lot of times it becomes just, we have to just.
Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I just saw something on my screen changing.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen here because I want to get to something, that we want to look at. So keep going. So explain, what we're listening.
Yeah, so what I felt was I just wanted to kind of start having a balanced conversation, because a lot of times as a competitor, you don't have a lot of resources to protest or to have a conversation. It's always like we get what we get and we don't get to throw a fit, And sometimes what I saw particularly is that there was a lot of camera angle busts. And if these happen on the exit on the hill, that's kind of common because, based on the camera being early or the team being kind of flat, having a bad timing or presentation. Usually when camera busts or non-judgeables happen, but we got an enormous amount on the flat, and usually our camera guy wasn't far away. Our camera guy wasn't really doing a bad job. I thought it was up to par or to international standards for all the competitions I go to. So I just wanted to kind of understand what was happening, and what I was seeing, it was a lot of like grip not presented, camera angle, or whatever, separation not shown, camera angle. So it was a lot of those, and then I started wondering, how could I possibly fix this? But if the judges are judging you by the letter of the law in the book or by the rules, then how can I personally make sure? And as the average is climbing up to 20 plus averages, 25 plus averages, encouraging a 30 plus averages, I know from a lot of years of experience that the judges don't necessarily like the camera guy being very agile, flying around. They really like the camera guy to hold a heading, so the judges, it can be rather confusing to follow the team as the team is moving around the sky, but it also becomes increasingly impossible for the camera guy to keep up with the team the higher the score goes. So I was wrapping my head around it, like if I didn't want those busts, how would I possibly solve that scenario? You know what I'm saying? The judges don't like if the camera guy moves around, and at the same time, if I don't move around, then if I do blocks that shave off 180 degrees of rotation every few pages, there's always going to be a grip that's not 100% in show. Inside centers picking up block 6 on the finish, a tail picking up 18, a tail picking up a block 20 finish. There's always going to be a hand that you don't necessarily see. We got busted on, I think, 216 finishes with Chimera, and it said camera angle, grip not presented. But to me, it's like it's obviously there. So yeah, that's why I don't know.
Hold this up so we can look at one example here. This is some of the stuff that you saw and that you were dealing with. This is Chimera's score sheet for round 2. It is.
Yeah, grip visibility, camera angle.
So we see them usually. We are used to. What we have seen in the past, and it was not surprising, was that we had those kind of busts in this area here, out the door. You know, that there's grip visibility, the grips cannot be seen, camera angle, all that kind of stuff. But here, seeing those in point number 10, point number 15, which is really in the middle of the,
yeah, it's the bottom of block 16. So
yeah, so this is unusual. We are not used to this. Now the troubles that I see, besides all the things that you already explained right there, is not only that it is difficult to understand that from the position of a competitor, because we know that it was complete, that it was correct. The judges say the same things. When you talk to the judges about it, or the coaches, or the whatever observers, everybody knows it was correctly executed. Everybody knows it was complete. Everybody knows it should be a scoring point, and you don't get it because it says they cannot see it, even though everybody knows it's complete. How do you deal with that?
well, I don't know. I mean, as a performer, number one, I cannot control what I can control. I can't control, you know, I can control my team and I can control my camera guy, you know, but I can't put unrealistic expectations on my team or camera guy. The judges are gonna judge the way they do it. Hopefully the organization has a panel that judges everyone for the same round, so the standard is fair within that competition. But I feel like at the BPA, the standard was applied very fairly to everyone, so no one was singled out. But if you compare it to the average, in my experience, competition panels, I think on that one, it was an anomaly. I think too many video buffs were given, and I'm sure in-time scoring can probably pull up. I know different nationals or different countries have different rules, but it could be is data driven, but also is educational driven. And what can I do as a performer? I mean, I can't really protest that. You know, I can't. I mean, I can have a 3D camera on my head and prove that the grip was there, but that's not really. I'm not allowed to do that. And number two, I can slow down and make sure, but that's gonna, you know, make sure that all the grips are very visibly shown, which is kind of like the camera guy's job. But he can move around, trying to get all the angles. But I mean, that's not really how it works. I feel like what I can do as a team is try to fly in a very controlled and consistent manner, so I earn the trust of the judges. I remember from round 1, 2018 World Meet in Australia, Airspeed flew a little bit frantic, a little bit, you know, we had a lot of questionable grips, and we ended up, I think, with 6 busts and losing the round by 7 points to Hayabusa. And I feel like that style of frantic flying, you kind of lose the trust and the assumption of a complete formation by the judges, you know. But in this case, Camara flew very, very nicely. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were very much in control. They were flashing. They were doing everything right. So I don't know. I ended up just talking to one trainee at the BPA Nationals, and she explained to me that the way she understands it is that video rule is more likely for video guys that are too far above the team and you can't see it. So the encouragement there is to be closer. But Pete Harris, who's the camera guy for Camara, he was definitely close enough. So at that case, if you can't see a grip because it's hidden behind the booty, but you have the gripper, then the question is, you know, if you start busting all of those things, then and that becomes something that we just do. Number one, I would like to educate judges from a competitor standpoint, but also, you know, maybe we need to ask more of our videographers. But I feel like, you know, you can see if a team is in control and if they have that grip. You can see if a grip is lost, even though it's not necessarily, you can see the arm, but you might not be able to see the hand or the glove, you know. But in this case, on point number 10 and 15 on the finish of a 16, block 16, we know as competitors that once you have that grip on the tail, I mean, if you drop that grip, the tail just keeps going, you know.
But it
So
didn't happen only for Camara, at least it didn't happen only twice in this round that we just saw the score sheet of. You know, it happened several times. I think you said it was like 7 times or out of 10 penalties.
yeah,
That
you can see on the score sheet there's another judge who busted block 20 at the bottom of it, and we assume it's the same reason for the catch on the 20, how the tail kind of catches the outside center on a 20 and you can't see the hand. I mean, my question is, as a camera guy floating over the team is moving like Camara at a 20 average. How do you guarantee that you get everything? I think practically in such a dynamic environment, it's impossible. So there has to be some sort of margin for the judges that they, by assumption, give the point to the team, or else we need to come up with some sort of solution in which we can keep our points that we know we scored, you know, because on this point I have to be on this angle, but that might be contradictory to the next point where I have to be on this angle. And now we're in a whole different realm of camera flying.
Right. Well, there are two things which worry me, and you know, I'm curious about how you think about this. Actually, there are three things, and I want to begin with something else quickly before I forget that. But let's use proper terminology, because it's not British Parachute Association any longer. It's British Skydiving now, so it's BS officially, not BPA. Just to make sure that this is, I got this correction already from others, so we want to make sure that we're using the correct. The British Skydiving Federation is now BS, British Skydiving officially. One thing that worries me is, first of all, that this new judging situation that we are not familiar with occurs a few weeks before the World Championship. We know that a World Championship is often decided by 1 or 2 points. In 8-way and in Tanai, it was a 1 point difference between first and second place. In 4-way women, it was a 2 point difference between first and second place. So the judges are playing an incredibly, and now the videographers too, with the teams anyway, we are used to the, you know, the pressure on the teams to perform cleanly and clearly, to not brain lock and blah, blah, blah. So that performance pressure for the teams is naturally there. But now it goes beyond. You know, the video is extremely important, has always been. You know, you cannot lose the points out the door. But now the judges are are in a position where they are deciding which team is a winner and which is not. And it's not only about winning first, second place, it's also in the field, you know, who makes the top 10 and who not, you know, and the judging calls are important.
Yeah.
And we are like 6 weeks ahead of the World Meet.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the most important thing is that the same standard is used to evaluate you know, the competitors at that meet. And I feel like British Skydiving did that great. Standard was the same. However, there has to be some sort of you know, more even standard, you know, across all the different countries, you know. But then again, I don't really know how that works. But I feel like also 2019, I feel like 2019 US Nationals at XP round 10. I think there was 3 different panels for Hayabusa, Airspeed, and Rhythm. So a different standard, because it's a different panel of judges scrutinizing different teams for the same round. All of a sudden you have 3-person jury. Now the standard is going to be very different. You know what I'm saying? Which I think is unacceptable. But that's an organizational thing. If you had the same panel seeing all the 3 rounds, that would have been good. You know, educating the judges. I think as competitors, we have to be more involved in there. You know, I know in the United States, Jim Reese and a few other people are very involved in that. And I feel like in a competition, you just run through the competition and you're at the mercy of the judges and the standard. And then afterwards have to be some sort of a debrief. so we can, because they're serving our community, you know, and how can they serve us better, you know, within the rules. And that's what I feel like the conversation happens now afterwards. I mean, at the World Meet, you're going to have 5 panel judges, and you know, that's going to be the top judges from whatever country they're representing at the World Meet. So I'm less concerned about that, because I know whatever panel is doing it is going to be fair for all teams, you know. But in other places, like in smaller skydiving communities, maybe the judging, like at the British Skydiving Championship, there was a lot of trainees because they don't have enough people that want to do it, you know. And so I sympathize with the struggle, but at the same time, maybe Camira can be a part of sharing the competitors' view of the judging and try to help educate the judges a little bit more. So we have a, because ultimately what we're doing is looking at the French nationals, and we're looking at their averages, you know, and we try to compare that to our averages. But if the standard is so off, it's going to be very hard to compare, you know.
Yeah,
but
impossible.
I mean, if all these nationals are using in-time scoring, I'm sure Dirk and Claire can pull up stats and be like, hey, at this nationals or at that nationals, all these you know, busts were given. This is the data. That would be very interesting to see, you know. And you can also pull up which judges busted more, which judges busted less. What's the average? Who's above? Who's below the averages? Just to that data is what we're using as when we train for an 8-way. You know, we time everything from the competition to ourselves, and it would be very good to have some sort of judging evaluation sheet, data sheet by In Time, if they could share that with the organization and then compare it to others, so we can try to consolidate these differences, you know.
I still want to go back to, you know, the score sheet that we just saw, the Chimera score sheet, and
Yeah.
think a little bit more about this, because it is also not totally new, not to you, not to me, because I've heard this before. I've seen situations where, you know, the catch-off block 20, catch-off 16, stuff like that, where we saw penalties in a situation like this, or where a grip was hidden. And it were situations where similar conversations took place. You know, the teams tried to explain, we know it was complete. The coach, the videographer, the judges all agreed, we know it was complete. We know it was correct. And still you don't get the scoring point, because the explanation is we couldn't see it. The pictures didn't show it us. We know it was correct, but you don't get the scoring point. It reminds me on something in that I learned at law school, or which is, you know, common law here in the States too. You know, let's say there is a jury or a judge, and he is totally convinced that the guy killed, you know, committed the murder or whatever. And the jury agrees, the judge agrees, everybody is sure it is really the case, but there's one piece of evidence missing.
Mm-hmm.
The jury will, you know, will give him the sentence, because, you know, judge and jury are convinced that he committed the murder.
I mean, we have to prove to the judges that we have the point, you know. That's what we have to do. And I feel like if you were to go by that rule, that the standard in which they busted us on that point, if you could literally afterwards go and apply that same standard, Camara should have 30 busts. If you go round by round and see all the grips that are, so the standard in a sense.
I get it.
No, I'm telling you that's what it would be like, and that's not realistic. And then what can we do? I could put one of those GoPro 3D cameras on my head, and you can see all the points at all times. You know what I'm saying? But now we're not getting the scoring done quick. And when I'm on round 5 and I'm just gonna score it already for round 3, I'm kind of competing in a bubble. You know what I'm saying? I would like to know my score before I go up, so it can be an interactive experience with my competitors, you know? So that's not a legitimate option either. I can't have two. I mean, I guess I could have two camera guys, one on level circle, you know, covering two angles. Or like you and I talked about the other day, we have some sort of scoring system where you get a green light when all I did, which is, yeah, we'll talk about that in the future.
Yeah, in 100 years.
I think what I can do as a competitor is try to be control. You saw Eros videos from the British Skydiving Championships. They were very much in control, you know. So, and Hayabusa is obviously very famous for in the past showing very much control. And I feel like as a competitor, you earn the judges' trust. And when you earn their trust, all of a sudden they're more lenient and they start trusting you. And when you do make a mistake, it's very obvious because this is not in control versus everything else is in control, you know. So that's something that you can do as a competitor. But I think we need to still massage the topic, because if you go by the letter of the law, you need to bust another 30 points. And that's not, I mean, in that case, it's not about the competitors anymore. The standard just has to be applied fairly. Yeah. And if it's about the rule and the rule book, I need 30 more busts. It's not about that either. It's about the judges, the rule book, the British Skydiving British Skydiving, period. They're all there for the people, the members, you know.
And rules are rules and regulations are regulations, but the interpretation.
And we would like to have 8 points back, you know. But then again, it's a continuous conversation where the judges want to enforce fair rules. And as long as they do that, it's fair among everyone in that competition, we're happy. But we would also like to have some sort of standard more similar to other competitions, other judging panels across the world, so we can fairly compare nationals to nationals more, you know? So I feel like this conversation is important because everyone goes to a competition. It could be a fast draw, it could be a slow draw, but everyone has all these personal bests they want to do, you know? They always want to show more work.
Absolutely.
And
they pay for it dearly too.
Yeah, you got it.
We are not professionals, you know. We are not getting paid. We pay for the logistics, for the jumps, you know, for the judges. We pay for everything, you know. So we're not a professional sport, and we deserve to get, you know, at least have some fun when we go there.
Yeah, and the thing is also, as a competitor, it's very easy in the midst of a competition when your adrenaline's up and you're motivated, and then all of a sudden you start seeing things you can't control happening to you, the interpretation of the judging, you know, and then it's very easy that enters your mind. And as a coach, as a competitor, my job is to stay on task, put everything you can into the next jump, into the next jump, into the next jump, you know. It would have been more revealing maybe if NFTO was there, because then you would have had two teams very similar to each other going head to head, and it would be more interesting to see how the judges treated that, you know, because there was such a gap between the three teams on the podium, you know. So
the word for the day by Niklas Hemlin, Arizona Airspeed. We have to leave it right here, Nick. Now we will see the US judges very soon, how they will do their job in let's go to Chicago, and then we will meet at the World Meet and see what can be expected once we're there.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you there again.
Are you coming up here?
Yes, I will be coming up to Chicago for sure, and I'm hoping to be at the World Meet too, of course.
I have a couch here for you if you need one.
Okay, I'll take you up on it. I'm used to couches anyway. And a coffee in the morning, all right?
Yeah, hey,
okay.
A couch and a coffee. I can sit here in this chair and we can talk about the issues of skydiving.
Oh,
I could be your therapist.
That looks like a good couch. I take it.
Well, how you feeling, Mr. Gable?
Nick, thank you very much. Have a great day. Good training. Say hi to the team, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.